Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back. We are in the second week of January. My name is Christa of Practical Astros. I'm here with Sonia of Celestia Astrology. We are two of the members of Asteri Sofia Kairos, which is what you're watching right now on our YouTube and Instagram. We're going to go through the week of January 8th through 15th and look at the major astrological transits that have happened. We did a kind of a month and even a brief year overview in an earlier episode. If you want to go check that out. We do talk a little bit about these, but we're going to go into a little bit more depth of the transits that are happening for this week of January 8th. This is the full month ahead from January 3rd with Venus entering Pisces for last week, all the way through Uranus direct at the end of the month. So we're going to be talking about Mercury entering Capricorn on the 8th of January. We're going to talk about the nodes entering Pisces and Virgo on the 11th, the full moon in Cancer on the 13th. And are we going to talk about Venus and Pisces meeting Saturn? Is that for this week?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, awesome. Oh, there we go. So the three big ones for this week are on the 11th, we have the nodes entering the Pisces Virgo axis. So they've been in Aries, Libra for about a year and a half now, and they are going to kind of go into those late degrees of Pisces Virgo on the 11th, and we're not going to have the eclipses until later on in the spring, but this is the beginning chapter of that nodal shift between Pisces and Virgo. Yeah. What else do you have to say about the node shifting? Do you feel like people are going to notice things when they shift, or do you feel like you're going to see it when the eclipses happen in March?
Chances are more with the eclipses, but
yeah,
of course it can go over a length of time. We were talking about this. How do you feel it or not? Because I had an eclipse right on one of my nodes, and I don't know that I could. There was a couple of events, but they didn't really feel like so major. But maybe the story's still unfolding.
Yeah,
I don't know. But also we were talking about the difference between the true node and the mean node.
Mm-hmm.
If you have astrology software, you might have noticed that there's two different ways of calculating the nodes.
Yeah.
And there's two different possible dates for the nodes shifting, which the mean node might not move until the end of the month.
Yeah.
It's because the true node, these are like mathematical symbolic points of the extremes of where the moon crosses the ecliptic. I think that's correct. And the true node is the exact point. And then the mean node, because those nodes shift so much as the moon wobbles and moves around, the mean node is just smoothed out a little bit. So it's a bit of a smoother transition. It's not moving backwards and forwards quite as much, going forwards and backwards as the true node does. So it's just mathematically a smoother journey for the nodes. So astrologers might use one or the other, and sometimes it's worth checking. And usually if you consult an astrologer, they'd be quite happy to switch if you find that you've resonated with one or the other. Quite often if you've had events that have tallied with one or the other, if you've researched both, if you're aware of both. But yeah, if you find that you weren't expecting that date to pop up and you were expecting it to be at the end of the month, that is why, because we're looking at the true node rather than the mean node.
Speaking of the moon, you want to talk about the full moon in Cancer?
Yeah, we've got this gorgeous full moon in Cancer, which I'm looking forward to. We've had some challenging full moons coming up, and we had the trilogy of moons in December, but maybe made things hard for people. So they weren't always easy moons, but this one just is nice. The moon is in her domicile, so it's a nice place to have a full moon as well. We've got some nice cards from the Wild Way Oracle deck to show you, just to ease us into the energy of the moon. It will be close to the retrograde Mars, so we can't have everything our own way. But generally, it's a nice full moon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I mean, the moon is at home in Cancer, and the new moon that's happening at the end of December 2024 will be in Capricorn, and so it's that growing moon to where she's at home, and so she's fully illuminated and fully at home in Cancer. Her exaltation ruler will be in the adjacent sign of Gemini, And I was looking to see if they had Antisha. They don't quite have Antisha, so there's not really that connection to her exaltation ruler. So she's just fully at home. Now, she is close to Mars. Mars is retrograde at 27 degrees, but, the moon as the domicile or the luminary of the night sect, Mars belongs in the night sect. So maybe having the moon in Cancer and Mars in Cancer together, maybe it's like they're familiar with each other. So maybe it's like a familiar problem to have. It's not so disruptive. It's like, I know it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. I feel like the moon is well aware of the devilness of Mars. So that's really kind of the one thing that's kind of maybe injuring her. But full moons are about illumination. So maybe it's just being well aware of a problem that has been and shining light on that so that there can be healing and moving forward and sewing things up. That retrograde of Mars there is returning for a reason. And so that full moon might just help us illuminate and be aware of what the full issue is so that we can kind of move forward once Mars goes direct later on.
And there is kind of like that window between the Mars-Pluto opposition.
Yeah.
It's full moon where the moon can bring things down to earth for us. It's like a translator. So it feels like if everything wasn't fully clear with the opposition, it's kind of like, this is the moment. Everything is fully revealed for you.
Yeah.
Of that retrograde with it being so close. And in a kind way, in a nice way.
Kind.
It's not as harsh as the opposition with Pluto, which could be more uncomfortable. This is kind of like being done very gently in a nurturing way. It's like, this is for your own good. Yeah, this medicine might not taste nice, but it's good medicine.
Yeah. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That's a Cancer. Cancer. Because then the next day we have that beautiful Venus in Pisces squaring that Jupiter in Gemini. So it does feel like it kind of is like maybe telling some similar stories. Squares are the nature of Mars. There's something to kind of be overcome. And Venus is exalted in Pisces and Jupiter is exiled in Gemini. So there is a little bit of battle here. But the benefics, they're both benefics. They're wanting to kind of come to some resolution, but maybe it's like some sort of thing that needs to be overcome in order for there to be some resolution.
So that's the first chart for the nodes.
Yeah, that's the nodes shifting. I do kind of like that the moon, the nodes are a story of the moon's path. And the moon is right there in the middle of it, right there at 26, within 3 degrees of squaring the nodes. So definitely the moon is wanting to tell a story. Moon in Gemini, Mercury's sign is definitely wanting to tell that story. So sometimes astrology winks, and this feels like a little astrology wink.
Yeah, it's like she's going to take that into the full moon moment in Cancer. It's like she's on that journey. Yeah, that's kind of known as the bending, isn't it? When it's the square. So it can be a crisis or a pivotal moment, like a turning point as well. So it seems significant, doesn't it, to pick it up there. And also nice to see the node just entering, being so close to Neptune. Venus is there. It just gives Pisces that extra boost.
And there is contra Antisha between the moon and Mercury. Did you see that? So if you go over the eclipse or the equinox line between Aries and Pisces, and then you go out to Taurus and Aquarius, and then you go out to Gemini, Capricorn, you add up the degrees of the moon and Mercury. The moon is in Mercury's temple. There is contra Antisha. So there's a secret opposition. There's a secret kind of fight going on under the surface to be overcome. And maybe that's what the nodes will also kind of be involved in. It's not a opposition like it would be if Mercury was in Sagittarius. It's a secret little opposition there. So I hadn't caught that before.
No, oh, that's nice. So it's like a shadow thing going on, but maybe that will come more clear when we get to the eclipses.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something they'll carry forward.
Yeah.
That's nice. And yeah, that will carry our themes now for the next 2 years going forward with those eclipses in the Pisces and Virgo areas of our charts. So it's going to be significant for us. Up to February 27, I think I've got, is the last Virgo eclipse. And then they start moving across to the Leo Aquarius. We start getting fixed signs eclipses. But at the moment, we've got mutable eclipses, which is is going to be an interesting energy because it's mutable, it's changeable. I wonder how that will affect the eclipse energy as well, being mutable.
Yeah. Hard to predict.
Yes.
I'll just bow out now to try to predict these because really hard to predict just in general. But mutable could go either way. Which way will it go? It will just make up its mind in the moment. That's how it seems like it happened.
And then we come to this full moon.
On the moon's day.
So yeah, lovely. On the moon's day, on the Monday, which is the day of the moon, January the 13th. And I've got it in the UK, it's at 10:26 p.m. So it's nice and late. So if you need to finish work and you want to do a full moon ritual, you've got plenty of time to admire it. You know, sometimes when it happens and it goes exact earlier in the day, you kind of miss it and then it's over by the time you see the moon in the evening. But it's nice.
Yeah.
I like it when it's in the evening. So yeah, as we said, it's a full moon in Cancer, which is the moon's domicile. So she's nice at home. And I've pointed out some fixed stars here because we've got some fixed stars coming into the mix. But first, as we mentioned before, it's conjunct the Mars retrograde, which is really the biggest story here. Yeah. So those Mars retrograde themes are being highlighted by the clarity that's being shown. The full moons bring things to light. If you think of, as we can see in the card there's the moon, you can see the reflection of the moon. Mm-hmm. And if you think of times before there was electricity, that would be a time when people could go out at night because there would have been light in the sky.
Yeah.
And new moon time, it would have been complete darkness. It would have been quite dangerous to go out at night. You wouldn't have been able to see in front of your feet. Whereas a full moon time would have been a time where there probably would have been more activity at night, just generally more socializing maybe, because you could rely on the light of the moon.
Yeah, classically more gathering together with other people too, because you could walk to their house. You know, you could all meet together for full moon celebrations. It's like the full moon is that recognition of all that can be shared, and just, you know, thinking of even you know, how like so many of our modern holiday celebrations you can trace them back to the lunar calendar, and how you know, it's a solar calendar too, but like the celebrations and the coming together and the feasts and the gift giving is so much lunar calendar related. So, yeah, I love this full moon. And do you know much about the fixed stars that are being pinged here with that peacock? And
yeah, a little bit. So we've got the moon is conjunct with a fixed star called Pollux, and we sometimes hear about the twins. These are the twins, Castor and Pollux, and they're both born fighters. They love a scrap. So we know some people just thrive on that energy of, they're up for the fight. They thrive on the conflict, the drama. They're brave and daring, and often successful in achieving the aims. So it's
very Mars coded.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's funny there to have that Mars energy, and it's got that potential to achieve spiritual authority. So if you think, quite often people who achieve spiritual authority, sometimes it is through martial activities. We think of a lot of the like judo and there's other sports, isn't there? A lot of the swordsman or shogun or anything, quite often there's a spiritual element. So you think of that, you know, a lot of martial things, when they have that spiritual side as well, is when mastery can really be achieved, when you've got that control of your mind as well as of your body. And it brings it to that higher level. So that's, I think, what Pollux is there wanting to teach us, bringing that potential in.
It's interesting because I'm reminded last night I was watching this show about food in the Deep South, and food is such a signature of the Deep South in the United States. And they were interviewing this one guy who has struggled with weight his whole life because of his relationship with food and the Deep South. And he was saying, you know, there's suffering either way. You either suffer now with the discipline of controlling your mind to help your body, or you suffer later from not having the discipline. And that it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's what it feels like. It's like you might be replacing suffering in the short term for suffering in the long term. And Mars seems to reward the suffering now so that you can have that discipline to not suffer continuously. Because thing about Mars is like it wants to get it over with. You know, Saturn wants things to endure, Mars wants to get it over with. So maybe that, you know, moon in Cancer also feels like kind of a gluttonous food related moon. And so maybe there can be like this inspiring, you know, super spicy, healthy meal that you can make for yourself to honor that Mars moon and Pollux aspect for this full moon in January. So
well, that's a really nice idea.
yeah,
it's always a nice way to do that, to honor them. And in terms of the aspects, we, like Kristen said before, it can't see its exaltation ruler Jupiter. Got that nice sextile to Uranus, so that's bringing support in, and
that's a tight
compound, isn't it?
Yeah,
very tight.
It's still
very tight. Got a whole sign square and a wide degree square to Chiron, so it's bringing in that healing element. So yeah, if you're wanting to heal something by getting that spiritual mastery as well, there's that potential there with Chiron being in the mix. Whole sign trine to Neptune, the nodes, and Saturn and Venus. So it's like everybody's got something to say about this, and a lot of them are doing it in a subversive way. Yeah, especially that Venus in that lovely benefic position. And again, she's of the same sect as Mars and the moon. So it's nice that they're all in that conversation, bringing that Pisces energy in as well.
Yeah.
We've got the Sun and Mercury are obviously opposite. Mercury isn't yet under the beams, I think, he's just outside. Mm-hmm. So Mercury's still able to bring those significations of like great communication in. And then we got the Sun is conjunct the fixed star Peacock, and just love this. Christa took a photo when she was traveling of a peacock and sent it to me, and I've got that as my banner because I do love peacocks. They were my favourite as a child and always have been. And I was delighted to find that I've actually got that conjunct an angle in my chart.
Yeah.
She was really excited. But this is the alpha star of the constellation Pavo, which is the peacock constellation. It's associated with the feathers, and it works through the heart. So it's very much, I mean, it's kind of like a Leo thing, isn't it? Being authentic.
Yeah.
Like when something comes through the heart and it's authentic, you can't really see yourself wrong when you do that. So the way that the Sun is shining the light here, it's really asking us to be truly authentic, like a peacock is. It just, like the Sun, it just shows its feathers and this is my glory, you know, and just love me for who I am and look, admire these colours. And it's just stimulating that passion and intensity and drive as well. It's just saying, just be fabulous, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm. And another thing about peacocks is like they like to roost very high up, you know, so they don't have nests on the ground. They hop and they kind of clumsily fly with their oversized feathers to very tall, high up in the tree so that they congregate together. You know, it's a very social animal, but I just like the idea of the peacock and Capricorn as being kind of these maybe on paper awkward looking animals. Like they're so over the top, you know, but they also like to be on the top so that they can have safety and perspective and community way high up on the mountain or way high up in the tree. So I wonder if that energy of like maybe having kind of a higher perspective or trying to get out of the mundane circumstances of the moon to kind of the more spiritual perspective of what's above the tree line here. What am I seeing? What is the context of this entire story, and not get lost in that Moon Mars drama, but also having a cool head and having that peacock energy of looking to see what are the other players here? What is Uranus doing? You know, what is that Pisces conglomeration having an influence on that? And having that cool calculation of Mercury and the Sun and that peacock fixed star to give some sort of sage guidance for, you know, yes, it's a full moon. Yes, it's Mars conjoined the moon. Yes, Uranus is sextile. Yes, you know, it's being supported by all that dreaminess of the Pisces, but there might be a bigger picture that's happening here. And just hearing that kind of signature of the peacock really brings it up of like, also don't forget to kind of perch high and look at the full picture if you can, because it's a full moon that lots of will be illuminated. And that beautiful card of the abundance, you know, that abundance and all of the things that make a great story, being able to see the whole thing and not be lost in the mundane minutia or the dramatic minutia of the moon Mars, but also kind of recognizing that fixed star next to the Sun. I just think it's a really beautiful signature for the 13th.
Yeah, it's really nice when the stars come in and really add to the story, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this decan that is in of Cancer 3 is ruled by the moon, and that's in the Chaldean system of the order, but also by Jupiter in the triplicity system. So that gives it a nice signature as again of bringing it to the exalted ruler again, given that Jupiter is in Mercury's sign of Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing that in again as well. And we're going back to what you were saying about the sage and the higher perspective. It's kind of bringing in. Kira Ryberg has called this deck an abundance, and Austin Coppock calls it the overflowing cup, which kind of links us to the tarot card for it, which is the Four of Cups, which is where we see the guy that's sitting under the tree with his arms crossed, and there's the 3 cups that are full, and he's offered a 4th. And you're kind of reminded, do you see that as somebody who's stubborn and ungrateful, or somebody who just has enough and is full?
Yeah.
And there's those, and here we see the beaver seems to have plenty, and there's a message in that, and ties in with the keywords as well, the desire for luxury, that the moons need to have that abundance around them, and having enough, and then a reminder to be generous with it when we have enough, to recognize how much is enough, and when do we need to be generous with those resources. And the Wild Way Oracle deck, she gives us a guidebook, some meanings for the card, and she talks about the Cancer 3 beaver. When he shuffles in, we enjoy comfort and security and abundance, and we can luxuriate in the knowledge that we have more than enough to nurture ourselves and to provide for those we care about. And at this time, you'll be able to bask in luxury and enjoy the fruit of your manifestations. But you are reminded by this beaver to be generous, to share the excess with those who suffer from scarcity. And if you provide the opportunity for others to enjoy those same comforts that you're benefiting from, that can be just as satisfying as enjoying them yourselves. And quite often I find it more satisfying, to give than to receive. And especially around this time of Christmas, we're reminded of that. And, just the giving of gifts can be more fun than the receiving of them. And being in that position to help others as well. I know, Christa, you've done a lot of fundraising and everything, and I really admire you for that. And we should give a shout out for your Asheville fundraising here.
Oh, it's still ongoing. Well, I mean, the project that I did was specific towards giving kids in the Asheville area that suffered from Hurricane Helene gift cards to local gift stores, but also to put money into the local economy so that, all the gifts weren't just being bought on Amazon or Walmart or Target, that they were going into local independent gift stores. So the side effect was that kids could go in and buy their own toys. We also bought candy locally. We bought stuffed animals locally so that the kids would have kind of the instant gratification. And thanks to a good number of people within the Asheville community and also worldwide that sent in money to be able to fundraise, we raised all the money we needed in 3 weeks. It was literally the Mercury retrograde story. Mercury was retrograding in my second house. So one of my skills is to not be afraid to ask for things, especially when it's for other people. My Jupiter is in the 11th house, which is about connections with other people. And it was such a beautiful event to be a part of and to advocate for. It's so much easier to advocate for other people than yourself, but it's a good practice of just saying, I recognize a need. This is how I feel like it can be done. I'm doing it transparently and I'm giving it away transparently, and there's no strings or entanglements attached to it. And it was such a great way to then share that, but it was only possible because everyone else agreed to do it. And it was like having that singular mind of wanting to lift everyone up around you. I benefited by being able to see it come to fruition. And so it was so much more fun to me to be able to do a project like that, even though I wasn't doing it for myself. But it was a benefit to that, to see the money kind of come in and then to see the surprised and tearful looks on the parents and the kids' faces of like, you're just giving me money? You're giving me candy? You're giving me stuffed animals? I mean, that's like my dream job. I wish I could just be the person that delivers prizes to people, because I was like, this is awesome. This is like so much fun to do. And I feel like I got more out of it than like the 75 plus kids that we like directly delivered this to. So yeah, it's way more fun to give a present than to get a present, but it's also fun to get presents too. Like, I'm not going to deny that. It's so much fun to receive, but the practice of giving, I feel like is it reverberates so much more. You remember giving more than you remember receiving a lot of times. So the memory of having that, of being connected into the channels of abundance, is just such a perpetual blessing. So yeah.
Really is. It's fantastic that you did that. That's amazing. So do you want to take us away with Jupiter square Venus?
Yeah, I mean,
Venus square Jupiter, rather.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how to describe this. I mean, we have both benefics. We have Venus at 11 degrees in Pisces. She's 4 degrees away from Saturn, so that influence is starting to commingle. When planets are in the same sign, they don't have an aspect. They're not really seeing each other. They're just kind of starting to blend their signification. So to me, I'm seeing a Venus that is starting to be influenced, or the paints and the pigments are starting to blend with Saturn, and then eventually with Neptune. So it's not just Venus in isolation. It's Venus with that Saturnian tint coming into square the other benefic, the greater benefic, Jupiter, who is not at home. He's at home in the opposing sign. He's exiled in Gemini, and he's also retrograde. Now, any planet that goes retrograde, there's like some sort of return to something to kind of get right that maybe you like glossed over or didn't do correctly beforehand. So what is the larger Jupiter retrograde story? Maybe Venus is here to kind of give some guidance to. Anytime the benefics talk to each other, I feel like they want to work things out. The nature of Venus is to merge. The nature of Jupiter is to support, right? And so both of those, the intentions behind the benefics there, I think we can say are subjectively good, but they're in a square. So there's something to be overcome. There's some sort of tension there. They're happening in the Gemini and Pisces houses. Those are by whole sign. They're always square to each other. They're ruled by opposite rulers because Mercury rules Gemini, Jupiter rules Pisces. So it's not necessarily just easy, but maybe it's like a good problem to have. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. And I can't help but not see that Saturnian influence with Venus. Now, Saturn exalts in Libra, which is Venus' sign. So there is some sort of familiarity with Venus and Saturn here. But I do feel like it kind of informs that square between the two benefic.
Yeah, I quite agree. We enjoyed the trine more, didn't we, than the square, but I always describe the square as thinking about it in terms of music and how a guitar needs that tension, a guitar string or a piano string needs some tension to get the musical note out, that sometimes tension can be good. Yeah, it's kind of like a call to action as well sometimes. And the trines can be a bit too easeful sometimes, that we can just lay back and enjoy it, like that image of Venus being brought everything. Well, now she's kind of got to do something about it. She's kind of got to get up and take some action. Imagine her lying on the chaise lounge being fed grapes, and now it's like, okay, you really have to do something about this, Venus. You have to make some decisions, or you have to take some action. And like you say, the Venus and Saturn is that aspect that we've been talking about as they get closer.
Yeah.
And this is like the closing square for them. They're coming to the end of the Venus-Jupiter story. They met in conjunction on the 23rd of May, 2024, and that was at 29 degrees of Taurus. So we were saying in December how much the anaretic degrees kept popping up going into 2025 in some of the new conjunctions that are coming up. This anaretic degree keeps popping up as well.
Yeah.
So this was at 29 Taurus. So that's, again, that last degree where there's something important there.
Yeah, and they'll meet up again in August. It'll be August of 2025. So you have like about a year and a couple of months story that the Venus and Jupiter, squares, oppositions, and closing squares are happening. What story started at that last degree of Taurus, and it's starting to kind of wrap up here with, Jupiter there in Gemini and Venus and Pisces, and then they're going to come together again August 12th, 2025 at 14 degrees Cancer. Jupiter is going to be in the exalted sign of Cancer, and almost at the exact degree where Jupiter exalts. Jupiter exalts at 15. So again, a good problem to have. It's like not necessarily that supportive trine, easy to miss, sort of like things are just coming to me so easily. It's like, no, I have to work for things. So come on, Venus, you got to get off the chaise lounge. If you want to see the sunset, you're going to have to like walk like across the rocks to get the best view. But when you get there, it will be glorious. Like, but you do have to kind of work for it a little bit.
And sometimes we see a release at this point, like almost like the moon cycles from the conjunction through to the opposition. There's like a growing of the story. And then from this point to the closing squares and the closing sextile, we've got the closing sextile will be from Venus in Aries, and that won't be until June, and that's because of her retrograde story.
Yeah,
Aries to Pisces, so that'll take a little bit longer. Yeah, there's something maybe that the two of them together are releasing from that story that started in Taurus before they get ready to meet again in Cancer. So it's interesting to watch the cycles and how they play out like that, especially if they've touched an area of your chart, if you've got placements around those degrees of Taurus, or if you will have placements in Cancer when they start the new story, particularly when it's the two benefics, because that's bringing something good into your life, something opportunities in. And you don't want to miss opportunities. It really hit me when I was studying the London School of Astrology. The teacher there spoke about reading for a client who was having a Jupiter ruled year. And she kept getting these opportunities and missing them because they weren't quite perfect for her. And he was just trying to explain, no, these don't come around that often. You know, you have to take these imperfect opportunities when they come, because you've got to meet opportunity at the door with your coat on and your bag ready, because they don't always come. Astrology helps us see when they come for us, and when these aspects hit our charts, then we know that they're there and we can be ready to meet them, even if they are imperfect. You know that this opportunity is meant for you. And that's one of the beauties of what astrology shows us, I feel, is we know, okay, that's hitting my chart, or that 29-degree Taurus conjunction first hit your chart, maybe, and you know that this cycle is for you. Or maybe you want to wait for the Cancer 14-degree conjunction, and then that's going to bring those opportunities in for you. Just be ready and be mindful that these opportunities aren't always perfect. You can say yes, but it's not ideal but don't decide to wait till next year when everything's going to fall into place, because that doesn't always happen. Be aware that the gift horse, don't check its mouth.
And also, I'm seeing Mercury there in Capricorn at 9 degrees. That's where the new moon will be, December 30th, 2024. And so if you did any sort of kind of new moon seed intention, that also might kind of be brought up immediately, just, 2 weeks later with this Venus Jupiter square, because the ruler of Capricorn is also kind of in the mix. So whenever that 9 degree has been coming up a lot with the new moon, it's like 6 months in a row, the new moon is at 9 degree, and then it starts to change again. But it's like this consistency, 9 degree. It's that very last degree of that first decan of all these signs. And, Mercury is there at this moment of this tension. And so it's like Mercury rules the Jupiter and, is being ruled by the Saturn that's also in that whole sign square within a couple of degrees of the square itself. So I don't know. It just, I like the idea, opportunities should not be perfect, because how you can't improve on perfection, right? And so if it's close enough, grab it, because then you can make it as more perfect just for your own circumstances. You have that agency to improve it. If something is held to you on like a gold platter, it's like, well, if this exists, then maybe it'll exist later. Grab the opportunities while you can. And I'll share a little story of the woman, the priest that married my husband and I. She has this dream that is passed around her family. Various family members will have this dream. And I won't give the whole story because it's not my story to necessarily share, but the premise of the dream is a woman wearing a red hat, and she has a plate in her hand of a fish that's hot and steamy, and it's for dinner. And she's walking down a hallway with this plate of fish, and she says, "Get it while it's hot." And I love the dream because it's like this moment, like the momentum is already happening. It's coming towards you. It's already been prepared for you. It is hot. It is steaming, and it's about to be set right in front of you. You get it while it's hot, because it's going to cool off. It's going to be eaten by other people. It's going to be thrown in the trash when it's done. It's like, get it while it's hot. And I like any sort of moment like this, especially with the benefics involved, of just like, these moments, they may not be perfect. You may not even like fish, but it was prepared for you and it was being placed right in front of you. So grab it, grab it out of the air. You don't know what's going to come of it. You don't have to have it exactly thought out. Maybe the moment itself will give you the opportunity to then dream of how you can go forward with it. But don't let these, we only live once, carpe diem, carpe noctem. We aren't going to get all these at all the time. And we have plenty of bad astrology coming ahead. So, any of these good moments we should totally take advantage of and appreciate.
Yeah, because you just see that there's that bit of work there with the square and Saturn there and everything. You can see there's a bit of effort needed.
Yeah.
But there's something beautiful there at the end of that effort. So
definitely.
Yeah, take it. And that concludes our week.
Thanks.
we'll be back next week with the 15th to the 22nd of January. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sonia from Celestia Astrology, and with me I've got Christa from Practical Astros, and you can find us both on those websites. We're both founder members of Asteri Sofia Kairos, and you can find all of our astrologers in the notes, and we've all got our books open for readings. And if you've enjoyed this, found it useful, please do like, subscribe, and comment with any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
Bye.